Good evening and welcome to Poland Daily. I'm Nicholas Richardson and this is the news. Today, the former head of the Polish Prime Minister's Chancellery and the spokesman for Donald Tusk's government, Paweł Graś, testified before the Value-Added Tax Investigation Committee. Graś indicated that when in government, the coalition of Civic Platform and the Polish People's Party, in common with other governments, had tried to take action to reduce the VAT shortfall.
The former head of the Polish Prime Minister's Chancellery and the spokesman for Donald Tusk's government, Paweł Graś, was asked, among other questions, about the functioning of VAT, where the problem of the empty invoices came from, and how he knew all about it because we found out about it after the recording from the restaurant came to light. In the recording, Graś says that the sale of drugs is unprofitable for now only the VAT. Graś testified that this knowledge wasn't a secret and that what he said in the recording was his personal opinion and not the government statement. He assured the committee that the Civic Platform, the Polish People's Party government, did try to reduce VAT fraud.
Świadek wykazał się tu również w toku prac komisji, musimy oddać bardzo dobrą.
The witness has shown a detailed knowledge of this matter. Where and how does the witness find out all about it? The recording is from 2013. So was the conversation personal, or was it during a meeting of the Chancellery of the Prime Minister of Poland?
Dyskutowano, czy może w jakichś osobistych rozmowach, może z ministrem Rostowskim. Jakie były źródła tej wiedzy?
Panie Przewodniczący, Pan i cała Komisja doskonale wie, że nie była to wiedza tajemna i...
The entire committee knows that this knowledge wasn't a secret. The whole matter was known since Poland entered the European Union. Every ministry, administration, government tried to take action to reduce the VAT shortfall. The same thing was happening during the Civic Platform and the Polish People's Party government.
Usiłowały VAT uszczelnić.
Ten, który jest poszkodowanym,
If we want to examine everyone who talked about the Polish economy in this restaurant, we can examine the Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki as well. He also presented his own views.
który wtedy był doradcą premiera Donalda Tuska.
To jest zatrważające, także wysoki
It is terrifying that a highly positioned state office worker has knowledge about VAT frauds, empty invoices, drug sales, and that people can found a few companies and not just one. Well, this is not common knowledge as he claims it to be. Today's hearing was one of the shortest ever. It lasted only 3 hours.
Sławomir Broniarz, leader of the Polish Teachers Union, has announced that up to 90% of teachers may take part in the nationwide strike, which will start on the 8th of April. Broniarz has said that the protest is non-political. However, according to some commentators, it is difficult to take his claims seriously given the involvement of the Polish Teachers Union leader and many union activists in actions in opposition to the government.
Już w najbliższy poniedziałek ma się...
As soon as this coming Monday, the results of the Teachers' Union referendum will be known. So far, the partial results are tipping the scales towards the proponents of the national-wide teacher strike. That means that the Polish schools will stop working as of 8th April. Problem is that just merely 2 days later, the middle school's exams are scheduled to start, and the following week, 8th grade exams. 6th May is the day for the start of the high school final exams, late in Poland, the Matura exams. The time to negotiate in order to stop the strike is running out. Polish President Andrzej Duda stepped in last night. He met Polish Prime Minister Mateusz Morawiecki in an attempt to find a solution to the problem.
By rozmawiać o rozwiązaniu.
The gentleman talked about many issues. Of course, we all want an agreement with teachers to be reached, that students and parents will have peace of mind. Our goal is that the exams planned for April and May will take place. We are repeating many times, and we need to say it again, that the teachers have the right to express their opinion. There's dissatisfaction. They have the right to protest, but really, it is not fair to make students hostages. It seems that they are placed against the wall. That is, from the government side, we have some talks. The president meets the prime minister. They talk about something. There is a will to reach a compromise, but in reality, the teachers do not get what they want. I have an impression that the teachers do not want to negotiate with the Minister of Education, Anna Zalewska, anymore. Moreover, because of the fact fact that she is a candidate in the upcoming European Union elections and might be going to Brussels, so the teachers have the impression that they are not taken seriously.
Chyba chcą tylko rozmawiać albo z premierem, albo z prezydentem.
Prezes Związku
The leader of the Polish teachers' union, Sławomir Brodniarz, states that the readiness for the strike is reported in as many as 90% of the schools which took part in the strike referendum. The key question is the turnout in the referendum. In order to be valid, at least 50% of those entitled to vote must cast their vote.
udział co najmniej połowa uprawnionych.
Robert Biedron has announced a so-called LGBT+5, a program of special rights for sexual minorities. Biedron appears to be adopting a more radical message as a result of being forced against the wall. In the latest opinion polls, his group, Spring, will show falling popularity.
Robert Biedron has painted a rainbow right in front of the palace of the president, and with that he has presented his 5 promises for LGBT. The so-called LGBT+5 involves the introduction of the same-sex partnerships, same-sex marriages, protection from hate crimes, sexual education and self-gender identification.
Orientacja seksualna to
Sexual orientation is just like the color of the eyes.
płeć. Stąd związki partnerskie.
Same-sex partnerships are a necessity.
Także mogły wstąpić w związek małżeński.
Biedron encourages the introduction to same-sex marriages, and there isn't much of a necessity to change the constitution. The Constitution says marriage is a relationship between a man and a woman, but that does not mean that it prohibits same-sex marriages. Civic Platform diffused Biedron. Now Biedron has to outbid the Civic Platform. Spring must take a distinct position to register in public opinion. Painting the rainbow is to encourage the head of the state to speak out on the matter. The campaign against LGBT, says Biedron. At its convention on Saturday, Spring will present a letter of the leaders to the European Parliament. Wanda Nowicka and Professor Zbigniew Bujak are to be found on it. So will Professor Monika Płatek. It is a party of one election. Have you received a ticket to paint the rainbow? Well, we will see. Once they accuse me of that, we have broken the ground.
We would like to congratulate Editor-in-Chief of TV Republica, Dorota Kania, who has won the prestigious Freedom of the Word Award of the Association of Polish Journalists for the film Ringraf, a moving account of the exhumation of the body of a Polish anti-communist underground fighter murdered by the communists. Hearty congratulations to Dorota, Ania, Kasia, Robert and the entire crew working on the film. European Union leaders are meeting in Brussels to consider British Prime Minister Theresa May's request to delay Brexit beyond March the 29th. Any agreement will be conditional on her being able finally to win over her many opponents and secure the approval of the EU withdrawal agreement in Parliament next week.
Nearly 3 years after Britons narrowly voted in a referendum to leave the EU, May has been unable to unite her divided cabinet, parliament or the nation behind her exit plan. Increasingly embattled, she asked the EU on Wednesday to postpone Brexit until June 30th, to give her time to secure a deal in Parliament and avoid an abrupt departure next week that could spell economic chaos. Any delay must be unanimously approved by all the other 27 national EU leaders, increasingly exasperated with Britain's inability to find a way out of the domestic political deadlock. The 27 leaders are expected to agree to a technical extension to give the UK time to pass the necessary exit legislation, if the House of Commons approves the withdrawal agreement before March 29th.
That's the news. Thank you for watching. Stay with us for the weather, business and more besides. But from me, it's have a good night and a better tomorrow.
Good evening, I'm Paulina Ottersteing and welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. Tonight the temperatures will vary from 2 degrees in the area of Rzeszów and up to 7 degrees in Bydgoszcz, Poznań, also in Koszalin and Szczecin, where some fog will appear. Showers are expected in the area of Olsztyn, also around Koszalin, and the rest should remain dry tonight. And now let's check what will happen tomorrow. So on the second day of spring, we are expecting again quite nice and high temperatures in the southern parts of the country, 16 to 17 degrees. Also Szczecin and Poznań will see high temperatures, 13 degrees will be noted in Warsaw, and some showers will appear again around Gdańsk and Koszalin, also in Olsztyn, where the temperatures will be a bit lower. Now let's check what will happen in the upcoming days. On Saturday, the maximum temperature will be 19 degrees Celsius, 18 will be seen in central Poland with some showers as well. On Sunday, it will be a bit cooler, up to 11 degrees in the southwest, 9 degrees in central Poland, and the minimum of 8. And on Monday, also a bit cooler, 11 degrees will be the maximum, and the minimum will be 6 degrees in the northwest. This is all. Thank you and see you soon.
You're watching Poland Daily Business Edition. Tonight our guest is Łukasz Bugaj, Investment Communication Manager of AXA. Sir, welcome to the show.
Good evening.
The data from Polish economy are quite good, despite the pictures that some people painted, saying that this will be year of the recession.
Maybe not the year of the recession, but the year of the slowdown, let's say. In some part of the world and in some sectors, we actually see recession. For example, industrial sector, German industrial sector is not in a very good shape. And Polish industrial sector is quite closely linked to the German industrial sector, but yesterday we saw the data for the month of February and they were relatively good. Actually, they were much better than anticipated because economists thought that the industrial production would grow below 5% year on year. But the data were higher than that, and the industrial production grew almost 7% from the February of the last year. So the data were better. Today we will see the data of consumption, and they should also be relatively good. So the picture of the Polish economy right now is relatively good. At the beginning of the year or in December, we thought that the growth of the GDP would fall maybe below the threshold of 4% in the first quarter of the year. We are in the almost finishing the first quarter. We can say that the GDP growth will be above 4%, and because of the latest package, government package to boost growth, and it is probably connected to the election coming down the road in autumn. The second part of the year should also be relatively good, and because of that we see actually right now revisions to the projections by economists and various bodies. The revisions are to the upside. Yesterday we saw that Fitch said that the growth of the Polish economy this year should be higher than anticipated before. In December they said that the growth should fall to 3.8%. Right now they say that we still will see the slowdown. So the slowdown call is active, but the slowdown will be not as deep as anticipated, and the GDP growth will fall to around 4%.
The packet to boost growth, you are mentioning the stimulus for families with children, this 500 plus for each child, the benefits for pensioners, the lower VAT tax for those who are, or lower personal income tax for those who are working and are under 26 years of age. So all those things should speed up the spending.
Yes, we saw the first package, the 500 plus for children, but for it was activated from the second child in family. Right now it should change also to the first child in the family. Back in 2016 the package boost and in 2017 especially it boosts consumption. So we should see like a similar factor, maybe not as big as before, but still apart from that pensioners will get another pension, 13 pension in May. So it will be activated around the middle of the year, but with the benefits we will see in the second half of the year. And in the data actually right now we see the positive influence and the positive factor of this package. Yesterday, apart from the data of the industrial production, we saw the data of the feel factor of the
PMI.
Not PMI, but the feel factor of the people of Poland, and the optimism of the consumer grew to new record in March, because the data was for the ending month of March, and we say that it was closely connected to the package that we talked before. So we see the positive influence of this package.
So depends how it will be developed. To me, the question is, we can spend the money, but we have to earn them first.
Yes, we have to earn them first, and this is one of the problems right now that we see, that for this year the greater spending because of the package will not be a problem, because it will be activated in the middle of the year, so the spending will not be for the full year, and we have earnings from the National Bank of Poland this year that will soften the boost of this spending. The problem will probably show next year, because this spending package, especially for the children and for pensioners, are relatively high, really big, and we have a special law that was published back in the year 2013, at the end of the year 2013, that limits the spending growth in the budget year on year. And with this new package, probably we will break this rule, this spending rule. It's called spending rule. And this is a problem that will show up next year probably. And right now we observe some movements around the Ministry of Finance and Prime Minister. Maybe this is connected to the data of budget deficit for the month of February. In the previous years, we saw that
we got surplus at the moment.
We had surplus. Even through the last months of the year, usually in December, we saw like a big deficit, but especially in the first half of the year, we saw surplus. The deficit surplus. Right now, we see deficit in the beginning of the year for the month of February. It was maybe it wasn't that anticipated. We see like we say that the package for the growth will be beneficially and will be good, but it will cost a lot of money. And the question is, what shape will the national budget, what it will take next year, especially when the effect of the spending package will be active for the full year.
Okay, that's magic, and we will see whether the government officials will be able to deliver all this money that has been promised, but we still see the economy is growing, and that's a good sign.
Yes, the economy is growing.
Łukasz Bugaj of AXA was our guest, sir. Thank you very much. And that was it for Poland Daily Business.
Hello, welcome again to Poland Daily Weather. I'm Paulina Ottersteing. Tomorrow in our country, in the south, we will have very nice and warm temperatures, 16-17 degrees and a lot of sun, as we can see also in the western parts around Zielona Góra and Poznań, 17 degrees. Also in Szczecin will be nice and warm with some sun and clouds. The minimum temperature tomorrow will be 10 degrees in Gdańsk, 11 in Białystok and Olsztyn, and 13 in the eastern parts that are around Lublin. Now let's check what will happen in Europe tomorrow. So the coolest will be the area of Helsinki with 5 degrees, 6 degrees will be seen in Moscow with some showers as well, and the warmest again Lisbon with 22 degrees, 13 degrees in Warsaw and 12 degrees in Bratislava with a lot of sun. This is all for tonight. Thank you and see you soon.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Poland Daily History. Today we will be talking to our guest, Mr. Krzysztof Jabłonka, a Polish historian, about the role Poland played in the Second World War. The Poles fought with weapon in hand not only in Poland, but on multiple fronts all across Europe. With our guest, we will explore the contributions of Poland in the Second World War. So in 1939, after the fall of Poland, as we know, there wasn't actually really a treaty or a surrender document signed of any sort. And I was wondering, how do the Poles keep on fighting?
Polska upada, ale nie ginie. Rozdzielona na dwie części.
Poland falls, but doesn't die. Divided into two more or less equal parts, it saved the most important thing, the army. Almost 250,000 people, pilots, sailors, 12 warships, a huge commercial fleet which remained in the west. It saved the national treasures, the Szczerbiec coronation sword, the royal tapestries. 80 tons of gold was also saved, transported via Romania to France and Great Britain. The office of the president and commander-in-chief was saved. In truth, the position of commander-in-chief was interned by the Romanians, but Prime Minister Władysław Sikorski almost immediately took up the position. The president also handed over authority to the president in exile, Władysław Raczkiewicz. The highest office was saved. Poland was the first ally from the first day of the war until the last. First to fight, as they said in the West, having moved to France. It's important to note that the Polish government didn't nest itself somewhere in some Paris street because that would be a symbol of subordination. They were given a royal castle in Angers, above the Loire. That's why this is known in Poland as the Angers government. Also, the beginnings of the formation of 3 Polish divisions took place in Quetequedon, which would stand in defense of France. They were one of the few that never surrendered arms. Some of them withdrew to Great Britain, while a part, cut off, moved into Switzerland when they would surrender their weapons, and the Poles survived the war. Finally, the Polish fleet also immediately broke through into Great Britain, as well as numerous Polish planes. Those that were able made it through to the west via Sweden. The Poles became the keystone of the Entente, the great alliance between France, Great Britain, and here also was Poland. And in such a composition, in April and May of 1940, the Poles moved to help Norway, which had been attacked. While the Brits helped in the sea and the French on the ground, the Poles not only retook, but liberated the beset or even already conquered Narvik, throwing the Germans out beyond the Swedish border. A heavy price was paid for this, because the most refined Polish destroyer, Grom, was sunk in Rąbak-Fjord after a pilot threw a bomb into its chimney, and the bomb ripped the warship apart. The passenger ship Chrobry, which transported Allied armies, was also sunk. The Poles paid a certain price, but put up an active resistance and became a fighting army in the west right up until the last moment. A symbolic moment for Polish armies in the west, and their fleet was the liberation of the last place, Copenhagen, in 1945, where ORP Konrad, the flagship crusader, would bring the Danes freedom.
ORP Konrad, nasz flagowy krążownik, przyniesie wolność Duńczykom.
Since we're on the topic of Scandinavia, I was also wondering about Finland, because that's one of the places that the Russians also attacked. And I was wondering, what are the Poles' reaction to such an action and the aggression towards the Finns?
My Polacy nie koncentrujemy się tylko na ataku na nasz kraj.
The Poles don't just concentrate on the attack on Poland, even though this is obviously the most important, but it should be remembered that in 1939 there were 4 acts of aggression, 2 prior to the war and 2 after it erupted. First, Czechoslovakia, or what remained of it after detachment from the Sudets, was attacked in 1939. In April, Albania was attacked by Italy. In September, Poland was attacked, and on November 29th, without declaring war, planes bombed Helsinki, just as the Germans did to Warsaw, and the so-called Winter War erupted, where the heroic Finnish nation went toe-to-toe in extremely sacrificial style against a gigantic Soviet army, which outweighed its military forces fourfold. They fought so well that the Soviets had to bring in additional contingents from the south of Russia because they weren't able to take Finland in their first, second, or even third attempt. On the news that Finland was fighting the Bolsheviks and that the Bolsheviks are allied with Hitler, the totalitarian world against the world of the free, the Poles, interned earlier from Sweden, got through the frozen Gulf of Bothnia and went to help the Finns. This was a time when the war was nearing its end, and the Finns were afraid the Poles would unleash a sequel to it. In March, peace was being reached, so they interned the Poles in Oulu, in the south. Nevertheless, it was a testimony to the brotherhood that the Poles were ready to help anyone fighting with a totalitarian nation. The brigade from Podhale, which ultimately landed in Narvik, was meant to land off the coast of Finland, because at that time Finland spanned across the Barents Sea, and the Poles were able to land in Petsamo and defend their Finnish brothers. When this became an impossibility, they defended the Norwegians to the point where the Norwegians were able to continue the battle independently underground once the Polish and French brigades and the British fleet had sailed away.
Po odpłynięciu Brygady Polskiej, Brygad Francuskich I floty brytyjskiej.
So as we were talking about how the Poles did not capitulate after the German invasion in 1939, I was wondering, how do the remaining forces, the Polish forces, join up with the allies in the West, such as UK, France, like how they get there and how they link their forces together?
Bezpośrednio po zakończeniu działań wojennych uruchomiły się 3 główne szlaki.
Immediately after the war ended, 3 main paths came into play. One went through the Carpathian Mountains into Hungary, where the Hungarians put Poles in lodges rather than camps. There you could go outside without any problems. Thanks to the Polish embassy, which was still around in Hungary until 1943, Poles very quickly received money and were able to travel on Hungarian railways free of charge to Yugoslavia, where they were also allowed in. All they had to do was show some ID or their Polish uniform and they could continue on. The Italians were also extremely friendly towards the Poles, the nation, as well as Mussolini's fascists, who when it came to Poles were exceptionally good-hearted. The Poles reached southern France, where they would enter the army. Polish soldiers were treated as allies. The second path was a little longer and went through Romania. They would either travel on trade ships around Greece and Italy to get to Marseille, or they would go directly from internment camps, which was a bit worse, because some camps were indeed grim. But the deal with the camp's leader was that if the Poles could get over the barbed wire, they were allowed to run away. It was a very popular pole vault. Whoever vaulted over the surrounding belt of barbed wire was free. They wouldn't be hunted down, and then they could continue on through Yugoslavia. The third path was longer but safer. It went through Turkey and ended in Syria, where Poles in Homs and in Aleppo formed what was known as the Carpathian Brigade. This brigade was there until France fell and the Vichy government went over to the Nazi side. Singing, armed with weapons and banners, this brigade marched to Palestine, the British zone, continuing the war along with some free Frenchmen. There were also two smaller paths, one via Latvia. This is how Marshal Piłsudski's family, his wife with their two children, were evacuated. They were taken to Vilnius, and when the Bolsheviks attacked, the family went to Lithuania, where they were taken in very warmly, even though Piłsudski was seen as an enemy of Lithuania. They were allowed to travel to Latvia, and from there they got to London via Stockholm with overnight flights and remained there during the war. And the other very interesting path went through Estonia. The Estonian army was extremely friendly with the Polish army, and the main commanding officer of the Estonian army, Johan Lajdona, was married to the Polish Maria Kruszewska and had great sympathy for Poles. The problem was the Germans figured out what was going on and stopped Stalin's ships that were sailing to Stockholm, taking out Poles and putting them into internment camps or sometimes concentration camps. So this path broke off.
Internowania, a czasami obozów koncentracyjnych. No i ten szlak się po prostu urwał.
So after the Poles reached France, how did they go about establishing a whole army in France?
It must be said that the French felt extremely superior to the Poles. This was very common. They believed the Poles didn't know how to fight. They believed Poles should be kept away from these matters, restrained. They didn't believe the Poles were ready to fight a war as serious as the one awaiting them. The Poles looked on in horror at the French's blindness, with their Maginot Line built along the Rhine up to the Belgian border for a great deal of money that was supposedly indestructible and would save the French. They pointed out that the line finished beyond Belgium and that the Germans would surely enter that way, and that's what happened. In some instances, the French would ask, "How do you know all this?" The Poles told them it was because they simply knew how to think things through. The Poles demonstrated what they were capable of when France was attacked on May 10, 1940. It was an instant war, a powerful armored hit which smashed the army. It should be remembered that General de Gaulle, the youngest of the generals, postulated creating entire armored armies. Unfortunately, he wasn't listened to. Armored troops were fragmented, a little in each army, and couldn't be brought together to form a collective unit and oppose the German power. This caused a gigantic situation and a fallen spirit and paradoxic situations where Poles would head towards the front line while the French ran the opposite way, throwing their weapons into trenches. As a matter of fact, the Poles received the worst weapons from the First World War and exchanged it for the better ones thrown away by the French. In the end, a legend was born that only young cadets from French military schools and Polish soldiers opposed the German onslaught on France until the end.
Nawale hitlerowskiej na ziemię francuską.
Poland was engaged in battle ever since the outbreak of the Second World War, lasting all the way until the last members of the anti-communist resistance movement was hunted down and executed in the early 60s. However, their contributions to the war effort will leave an everlasting impact on history. I'm your host, Benjamin Lee. I'll see you next time on Poland Daily History.
The history of the Kamienica theater dates back to the communist era. In 1988, the Broadway director Józef Papp visited Warsaw. It was there that he met the future director of the Teatr Kamienica and asked him, "Why do not you set up your own theater? During communism? When communism is over, set up a theater." His suggestion has not taken up for many years, but Papp had sown the seed. Emilian Kamiński warmed to the decision in 2000 and began to search for the right place. Standing in the courtyard of the tenement at Aleja Solidarności 93, the future director already knew that it was the right place to create the Kamienica theater. The bustling walls of the pre-war building retained the memory of the splendor of old Warsaw, and subsequent stages of construction revealed more and more of its secrets. For 5 years, he collected funds and materials necessary to complete the investment. The theater construction plan was being created on a regular basis and was constantly modified until all the smallest spaces were managed. The wife of the director, Justyna Sieńczyło, and Jolanta Pachowska worked on finishing the interior of the theater and refining the smallest details. On March 27, 2009, on International Theatre Day and on the centenary of the construction of the tenement house, the grand opening of the Kamienica Theatre was held. The names of the people who contributed to the project were placed on a commemorative plaque located in the courtyard. The former address of the building, built in 1910, was Leszno 13. Initially, it belonged to the rich Jewish leather trader Misha Roga. It was adjacent to the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto created in 1940. The former address of the building, built in 1910, was Leszno 13. Initially, it belonged to a rich Jewish leather trader Misha Roga. It was adjacent to the walls of the Warsaw Ghetto created in 1940. The building was damaged during World War II, and partly, consequently, the fourth floor was rebuilt after 1945. Where the Eliter stage is now located, the remains of Aron HaKodesh were found, along with an altar cabinet that used to store the Torah. During the construction of the basement of Warsaw, Emilian Kamiński discovered more than a century-old Vilor Bosch tiles. In the basement and what is now the restaurant were cellars which during the uprising helped transport Jews from the neighboring ghetto.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. In today's episode, I will be talking to Mr. Emilian Kamiński, the director of the Theatre Kamienica in Warsaw, Poland. Hello and welcome to Poland Daily Culture. Dzień dobry, dziękujemy, że zgodził się Pan dzisiaj z nami być. I will start with a question about the history of this building, because the theatre was opened in 1910, but it was in a different location before. Is that true? Gdzie on się znajdował i dlaczego był gdzieś indziej?
To znaczy, teatr był w moim sercu, tak, i w mojej głowie.
Theatre was always in my heart and in my head too. I came up with the idea for the Kamienica Theatre in this exact place in 2002. Back then, on August 4th, I was standing in the yard of this tenement house. I've been looking for a good place like this one for years. I fell in love with this place and I knew it should be here.
Bo tutaj dostałem taki impuls, że to jest właśnie to. Chciałem stworzyć teatr.
I felt an impulse inside that it should be right here. I wanted this to be in a special place in Warsaw, and this tenement house is about 120 years old. So this building knows the history of Warsaw. It saw everything.
Kawał historii w tych murach, w tych cegłach. Te cegły jak miały mówić.
A lot of things happen between its walls. It beautifully tells the story of Warsaw itself, of the greatest years of Warsaw, but it also tells the story of the city's most difficult times. And I thought that this building would be a perfect place for a theatre.
Bardzo dobre miejsce, że tu ten swój teatr o którym marzyłem zrealizować.
This is where I would find the theatre I had always dreamed of. The theatre that would be the theatre of Warsaw, of its history, tradition, but also the theatre for contemporary times. A theatre that would touch on every important subject and problem. And this kind of theatre, dynamic, contemporary, and full of history, I had always wanted to find. That is why I decided that this place is right to do so.
Zdecydowałem na to miejsce.
I heard that you have found some Asian Villeroy Bosch tiles over here.
Tak, tutaj ten cały...
Yes, every room here is an antique. Before the war, a Podfontanna cafe was located in the very same room we are sitting in right now. And after the war, it became a typical Polish People's Republic shop.
Wszystko inaczej zrobione, ale wróciliśmy do tej dawnej świetności.
Of course, everything looked different back then, but we tried to take back its old look. Downstairs we have the Villeroy Bosch's tiles. We discovered them because they were hidden. There is a story about it. When we discovered them, a person called von Bosch appeared. He was 90 years old. He was an old prince, I guess. He was very beautiful. He fell on his knees when he saw these tiles. He touched them and me at the same time and said, "Emilian, danke schön."
Mnie głaskał i mówił, Emilian, danke schön. Podziękował, że to zostało. Także
He thanked me for saving these tiles. So, like I said, the theatre is connected to Warsaw's tradition. We have here a scale model of an old pre-war Warsaw. It is 30 meters long, so that's a piece of art. In front of the building we even have a tram, an old tram which used to serve passengers in their daily life. It functioned until the 1960s, so after the war.
To jest wszystko taka tkanka miejska. Jeszcze chciałem jedną...
I would like to mention something that is not relevant to our subject. I would like to thank the television. During those hard times, some people came here and wanted me to leave this place. They wanted to destroy this theatre and create something different here. And then Telewizja Republika and other media helped me. They stood up for me, they supported me, and I am very thankful for that. So I want to thank Telewizja Republika and other media for defending this theatre.
I innym mediom, które murem stanęły w obronie tego teatru.
Thank you on behalf of Republika TV. We are trying to support initiatives like this. It is very important for institutions like this theatre to function in Poland.
Miejsca takie, które...
Yes, I will say what the people say because my opinion is not that important. People say that this theatre is Warsaw's theatre. It's not like any other theatre. The definition says Kamienica theatre is not just a theatre. The next one is mine. I always say, don't take the will to live away from people. Theatre can't take that away.
To jest moja taka, która się sprawdza. Nie odbierać ludziom chęci do życia. Teatr nie może odbierać.
And also a famous one. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going? We have here the mission spectacles. We have a lot of social activities as well. We do a lot more than just commercial activity that is supposed to bring us money.
Pieniądze, bo teatr nie ma dotacji. Jedynym naszym partnerem.
The only sponsor we have is the company PKN Orlen, a major Polish oil refiner and petrol retailer. I am very thankful for their support, but in general, the only money we have coming in is from the ticket sales. The audience is the most important sponsor, and it's the audience that is responsible for our sole existence. This theatre has been functioning for 10 years in this location. It is not only the fact that people come here and pay for tickets, they also say that they feel like they are in my house when they come here. Me, my family and my co-workers, we are all a big family here.
Tak się to jakoś zrobiło. Oglądałem Bohemian Rhapsody.
I watched a movie about Freddie Mercury the other night, and I heard the word family a million times. We are all family. All of them in that movie created a family.
Rodziną. Wszyscy oni tam byli rodziną i to jest wspaniałe.
That is amazing. I want this to be a family as well. As much of a family as an institution like this can be, but this family would bring the other families together.
Przyciąga inne rodziny, a tu o to chodzi.
And this is exactly what it is all about. For example, there was a problem of designer drugs in Poland. It is still very important. And what's with these designer drugs? People die taking them.
Ciągle są przed policją I myślimy sobie,
The producers of these drugs are unpunished. The law doesn't apply to them. The police is going after them. And we thought we should write a play about designer drugs. My wife came up with this idea. She said, listen, we have to do it. We have to react somehow. And we did as she said. People reacted amazingly.
to jest 7 stopni donikąd. I najpierw się śmieją, a potem coraz mniej, coraz mniej.
Firstly, they started laughing, but they stopped by the end. The play showed a little girl who died because of those drugs. The teenagers started to think about all this. I am preparing another play about cyberbullying. This is also a very important thing. The theatre has to function, make use of history, make use of contemporary times and the future.
Korzystać z historii, korzystać z życia teraźniejszego i myśleć o przyszłości. To jest właśnie ta dewiza.
This is a division that connects this whole family. We make a living from ticket sales. We have our own families. We have to make a living, like everybody. And the theatre gives us this opportunity. But what is important? What we have in our offer is very important.
Co my proponujemy? Bo proszę sobie wyobrazić, że w teatrze
But see, the basic thing in every theatre is to be, not to have something, but to be. Unfortunately, there are many cases where to have is more important than to be. And this is a problem. We have to remember about that.
niż być. I to jest pewien problem. O tym też trzeba pamiętać.
Hello and welcome to Poland Daily. We're really glad that you've joined us because without you, there'd be no point in doing this. In this next series of episodes, we're going to be looking around the Warsaw New Town. It's still very old, don't worry. We'll start off at the Hotel Le Regina. After that, we're going to take a walk and see the oldest church in Warsaw, and one of the oldest in the country. We'll get you up to date on the history of the place and talk about a very famous person who once lived right around the corner. That is Madame Curie, the famous scientist. From there, we'll continue back to the Old Town, stopping off at the Barbican. That's the old wall that surrounds the whole area. It's pretty amazing. So if anybody needs any advice on how to build a wall, they might start here. After that, we'll go to a restaurant in the Old Town for some traditional Polish food. And to top things off, the cherry on the cake will be a trip to the largest souvenir shop in Warsaw. Well, you won't want to miss that. So stay with us for adventures in the new town of Warsaw. It's Poland Daily Travel, probably the greatest travel information about Poland in the world. Hey, and welcome back. We're at the restaurant called Pod Herbami. We're here in the Warsaw Old Town, and we're with the next course of excellent Polish food. Here we have, what do we have, Artur?
Everything what we need. Starting from, I cannot stop myself from starting from the duck.
Okay.
Which is a very traditional Polish food because a very important part of Polish tradition is connected with this dish. So listen, once upon a time, if a man wanted to marry a lady, he had to ask her father for permission. So he was coming to their house and the father was saying, okay, boy, now you will wait for 3 days and you will come back and I will give you your answer. So young boy, stressed as hell, is coming back in 3 days and there is no father or a girl waiting for him, but a cook with a dish. So young gentleman sits like this with his plate empty and he waits for a dish that will be provided by the cook. And now if the cook brings him a soup made of duck's blood, you cannot marry my daughter. So then, how do you think? What the boy was given if there was a yes answer?
Duck. Duck.
Indeed. With beetroots and also cranberry sauce necessary, and of course potatoes. So that's the very traditional Polish dish. Then maybe let's smoothly skip to the zander that we are having located on this beautiful spinach sauce with some salad and also potatoes. That's a Polish fish. So available.
Do you know the name in English? Sandacz?
Yes.
What is it?
In zander in English.
Oh, it's zander.
Yes, in English.
Right. Okay,
I already translated it before.
Sorry, okay.
And then sandacz in Polish. It's a fillet. And then pork chop. So this is something that every single kid had many times. Pork chop, once again sauerkraut, and potatoes brought by the Spanish from South America to Europe. From Spain, potatoes spread up through all continent. Then the Pope says you cannot eat the potatoes because it's a dish of the devil. Then only kings were eating potatoes. So one of the first Polish guy who ate potatoes was King Sigismund, who's located on the column next to the old town. And then a potato became a regular dish of a regular Polish peasant. So we are all born and raised at some point of our history on potatoes. So till nowadays potatoes are very important, and this is like the traditional Polish dish. This is something that everyone had, this pork chop with sauerkraut and potatoes. That's traditional. So there are only two more words I would like to add in here. Dig in.
Bon appetit. Something like that.
Dig in
we're
works.
going to try it. Nick, why don't you have a go and start handing this around?
Yeah.
Take a piece. So let's try each one, I guess, a little bit.
I guess so, yeah.
See what you got. Maybe you send that one going around the duck. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to have some of that?
Let's have our yes answers.
Have some, yeah. See how it is. What do you got there? Spinach with the fish there?
Spinach sauce, yes.
Yeah. Looks very good.
A bit of potato.
Yeah. Superior.
Bit of the salad.
Wow.
And you dig in too.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'll try a little bit. Yeah. And how is it? Look. How is it?
Very good.
Yeah? Oh, it's a nice piece of fish here.
It's a lovely piece of fish. Very tasty.
Stay
Yeah?
in here.
What's that?
Okay. No, I'm just talking to the pork chop to stay in here.
But do your pork chops have a habit of disappearing?
Yes, especially when there are hungry people around. They disappear in a flash of a light.
Oh.
Here you go. Take that. Maybe I'll have a little more of that.
Duck is outstanding.
Is it? It's such a big thing here. And I've had duck here before. It's plenty of times. It's one of my favorite things.
If a foreign guest in a restaurant will say they didn't like the duck, then the cook will cut their veins and see blood going out, because that's so important for us.
Why?
To provide a good duck.
Why is that?
Because it's our traditional meal. Every single restaurant will tell you that the best meal they have is a duck.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. It is good usually, yeah. What's this? This is the
pork chop.
Pork chop. Wow. I'm going to try a little bit of this and see how it is.
Beetroots.
That's tasty.
Poland is one of world's biggest beetroot producer. Also very important in Europe. Very healthy. Biggest European beetroot sugar producer, by the way.
Because they're making sugar from the beets, aren't they? Instead of sugar cane, they make it from beets. Trying the duck now. See how that is.
You were warned.
That is some good duck. Now, what's this thing here?
Pork chop. So it's big, it's thick, and it's tasty.
Let's try a little bit. This looks almost like a Wiener Schnitzel or something like that, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly, but it's thicker. Wiener Schnitzel.
A little bit of that. The cabbage.
Proper Wiener Schnitzel served in Vienna is as thin, almost as thin as a piece of paper. And what I experienced in Vienna was also, I'd say, look, in here we are having quite a lot of meat when it comes to the amount of bread, panierka, I would say in Polish. So this thing that they fry it on with. But in here, when I put it in my mouth, and surely I will, mostly I feel...
Well, nobody's going to stop you.
Mostly I feel I consume meat. So, as I promised, I will keep my word. And you can watch.
Well, this has been great. Poland Daily. We're having a feast. Polish food. We got the duck, we got the pork cutlet, and we have the sander fish, or the sandach in Polish, right? Yeah. And it's all fantastic. Good. Stay with us. More exciting stuff on Poland Daily Travel, and I hope we didn't make you too hungry. Nick, are you still hungry?
Well, I'll finish what I have.
You're still working. You're still going to work. He's going to work his way. You're okay. You know? This guy.
I'm on the way.
Yeah, he's looking at the duck. He's hoping I don't eat the duck.
You're like a gannet. I mean, you know, there's everything, you know.
Well, yeah, you just can't. There's food there. You have to eat it.
It's all there for you. You have to eat it. Okay.
Of course,
all right.
absolutely.
Especially if it's as good as this.
Quite right.
Okay. All right. Stay with us. Stay tuned for our next episode, Poland Daily Travel. I'm going to dig in because talking too much, not eating enough.